All right, cool. Well, we're going to shuffle on to something else, which is Star Warsy here. Although we did have a super sticker come through from Al Humphreys, so thank you so much for that, dude. Really do appreciate that. But the this dropped yesterday, basically, and Lucasfilm is being sued by the Acolyte producer who worked on the project for 2 weeks for wrongful termination, egregious breach of contract, wrongful termination. This isn't a small time producer. She's been involved in Ballers, which was for all intents and purposes pretty big-ish production. It's quite mad. This is Ms. McCarthy. So to get through to the sort of nitty-gritty of it, basically, executive producer Karen McCarthy was axed by Disney Plus, The Acolyte, after just a few weeks of work. So according to a complaint obtained by Variety, and I quote, as a result of its bad faith and wrongful termination, defendants deprived Ms. McCarthy significant employment from which she would have earned millions of dollars over the life of the series. 2 weeks after Lucasfilm and McCarthy apparently settled on a broad strokes agreement without explanation, without reason, without justification, Lucasfilm told McCarthy it wanted out of the deal per the complaint. McCarthy claims that boarding the Acolyte prevented her from taking on a lucrative executive producer position on the Apple TV series Sugar. According to her agent, David Morris, this deal would have made McCarthy the highest paid producer at Apple. But by the time McCarthy was fired from the Acolyte, the Apple offer was no longer on the table, leaving McCarthy with neither deal. Now, I mean, it's pretty huge. So for over 35 years, Karen has hired thousands of people for several major studios on many high-profile projects. She knows when a deal is a deal throughout her entire career, from office assistant, location manager, unit production manager, and eventually producer. She has prioritized fairness, kindness, and human decency. They're scoping for a jury trial in this, is what they're looking to get. But McCarthy claims that when she requested to be paid for her work on The Acolyte, Lucasfilm denied that they even had an agreement, even though they had made their offer containing all of the material deal points. McCarthy accepted the offer, and Lucasfilm had McCarthy start right away. And Lucasfilm sent to McCarthy a memorandum of agreement memorializing the terms of, including that McCarthy had already commenced working. Per the complaint, this is not new, by the way. Lucasfilm are notorious for not paying people. And Disney. There's been many a complaint about this. McCarthy is therefore forced to bring this action to hold Lucasfilm accountable for its egregious breach of their agreement, its bad faith denial of that agreement, and for the statutory penalties McCarthy is entitled for its failure to pay her for her work. They offered her $5,000 as well, basically. Guys, Andre, let's get your thoughts first. Okay, Andre's dead. Paulie, we'll get you.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was just muted. Sorry about that. Anyway, but let Paulie go first.
No. Correction. Andre's just dead inside. He's actually quite alive. You with us, boss?
I'm with you. I was blabbering along until I said, "Oh shit, I'm muted."
Dear.
Andre, please.
Yeah, this is a really big deal.
It's huge.
This is a massive, massive deal. This is a disaster for Lucasfilm. For one thing, I empathize with this producer lady right here, because just imagine you are in a position where you can choose between two relatively lucrative things. I will say, though, that she made the wrong decision. It tells me that she is not in tune with the audience for going with the Acolyte and Star Wars, which is at this point is a sinking ship. She really should have gone where the money is, and that's with Apple. That aside, she made her choice, however ill-informed the choice it may have been, and then she lost the other opportunity. I really empathize with that. And then they pulled the rug from out under her. Now, what this lawsuit tells me is that there was no signed agreement. There must have been some kind of an oral agreement or something like that. Like, hey, come over this. These are the things that Our agents have agreed orally, but I don't think there was a signed agreement. But still, as long as there are enough people here that can say that, yeah, there was an oral agreement. An oral agreement is legally binding. She can prove losses. She can prove damages by having declined this thing for sugar. And I assume she must be able to prove it because it's in the trades for everyone in the industry to read, which means that Disney actually are on the hook here to pay her the millions that she would have gotten from an assumed full season run of the Acolyte. The big question then is what's going on with the Acolyte, since she was hired and then suddenly fired instantly afterwards. Like, what the hell are they playing there? Does this have something to do with Bob Iger's 5 billion savings that he's supposed to cut from content production? Is this what happened here, that Leslie Headland suddenly realized, oh yeah, we need to cut some money here, so I'm just going to cut you after you decline this? Either way, this is a really, really bad case, and it's blowing up in the face of, first and foremost, showrunner Leslie Headland, secondly, Kathleen Kennedy, thirdly, Bob Iger. Because before he could say that, oh, well, before under Bob Chapek, there was like this lawsuit from Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Although Iger was the one behind that, obviously, but now he doesn't even have that. Now he can't even say that, oh, everything is so awesome with the talent and everything, because look what happened just weeks or months after he came back. I mean, this doesn't happen in Hollywood. It happened here, and it's bad. And it's getting like industry trade headlines. This is going to cost. This is going to Hollywood. Yeah, exactly. This is going to cost them millions of dollars, probably. I don't think it's going to go to court. Here it's going to be like some arbitration behind the scenes. She'll be paid millions upon millions in shut up and go away money. But still, the reputational damage here is bad. And I'd love to hear what Paulie has to say to this as well.
Well, this is not looking good going towards that writer strike. I think it's all, I'm just hitting it from another angle, because what I'm also seeing in other major productions is just studios, producers, even named talent that's behind projects, just absolutely crapping on writers, their money, not paying them. And this has been getting worse every year, whether it's Netflix or now this. You know, Netflix paid pennies to the writers and creators of the Selena TV show, which was their biggest international hit. You know, Culture can back me up on that as far as like, just it was number one in like all of Latin America. I mean, we're talking about dozens of countries for a long time.
Yeah.
They got paid dirt. And the only reason why that they did it, and this was a LA Times expose a couple of years ago, because they did it for the subject matter, you know, at that, you know, in that case was for Selena, to make sure it was done right. But they got paid shit, and that's why that expose happened. And now I'm reading the showrunner for this new Zorro I was telling you about, which I had shared with Andre. He's clamoring about a different project. Same issues here. Writers not getting paid. Company, studio, name talent, shitting on production, shutting it down. I mean, this affects so many lives. So, you know, in regards to this bozo Headland, you know, and these other clowns that they do their panels of diversity inclusion, pack it up. There's the exit door. Let's get some new people in here, man. I mean, this is just disgusting.
Yeah, agreed. Culture.
Well, look, I mean, this only really I'm going to talk about both things that Andre and Paulie brought up, but this only started moving forward because they indicated publicly that they were starting production and shooting in the UK for The Acolyte. That's the only reason that this actually will have any weight behind it, because if they actually make this show, Karen, I forget which, anyway, she's going to get paid.
Karen McCarthy.
Miss McCarthy. She's going to get paid. There is precedent in previous decisions. Millions of dollars have had to be paid in these kinds of, work, the assumptive work that she was doing. She was already on the job, right, doing different various things, traveling, et cetera, et cetera.
She worked on it for a total of 2 weeks.
Yeah,
she was working on the project for 2 weeks before she was unceremoniously fired for no reason.
And again, had this been like, well, we're not actually making this, she wouldn't have the grounds to go after it. But now that, again, we've heard that they've started production on the show in the UK.
We've seen set photos.
Yeah,
they are properly in production.
Yeah. So we'll see if that actually is what they were waiting for. I believe that is the case. And as far as the writers' strike goes, that we're about to get smashed with, they're not the only ones. It's funny because I'm not sure if this is a subject matter for today, but the SNL video editing, the pre-video guys, they're going to go on strike on the 1st of April. Then you have the Writers Guild likely to follow in May, maybe sooner. Right. And then, the Directors Guild, all the guilds, all the main guilds for IATSE are in a position to renegotiate their contracts this year. They are all talking with strike language and have made demands. And Polly's 100% right. There are people that have been shafted recently in just extraordinary ways. And having this be in the trades, as both you and Andre have indicated, and even Polly did too, this is the paper of record for the entertainment industry. It's been around, forever. And here's this story marching out across the world that, I was done dirty by Disney. This story is constantly repeated. Think about the VFX artists and everybody else that has been talking about this. They're fearless now, because there's so much work that can be gained from other places, because there's so many streaming services. It gives them the opportunity to go after the bully.
On the topic of this lawsuit, the C-Man drops in with $5 and says, "It's common for lawsuits like this. Is it common for lawsuits like this to get into the trade? Seems like an exception that this is so public." Yeah, you are completely right. Like, a lot of this stuff, this is the last resort for Ms. McCarthy. Make no mistake, this is the last resort for Ms. McCarthy. She would have gone to Disney multiple times, and it's even stated in the Deadline article is that her and her legal team pressed Disney for payment, and they offered her $5,000, and she was like, "Fuck no." So this is the last resort for Karen McCarthy. Here is to take it to the trades. Guys, any other input on that?
What I can say about that is that it is very frequently that you have like legal squabbles and stuff like that behind the scenes. And that is more often than not solved in Hollywood's own court system called arbitration, where these things are solved without us ever hearing about it. And there are many, 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 many cases that go up into arbitration, and we never ever hear about it on the outside, because that's basically Hollywood handling their own shit, because no one wants it to get out. Someone is unhappy, and we don't want to deal with this in the courts, so let's just have our lawyers hash it out behind the scenes, and that's arbitration. But in this case, this is a public lawsuit. This is rare, very, very rare, which is why it gets this kind of attention. And what I was about to say earlier, the big thing here is, why does this happen? I think this has to do with is a repercussion of the streaming wars, and I think we may see more of this, because the streaming wars is a war that has no real winner apart from those that stayed out of it, because everyone right now is in a position where they have to spend so much money on content creation just to compete, and they're not necessarily seeing the returns of it. Case in point, Bob Iger is cutting $5 billion specifically from the content creation for Disney Plus budget. I think that may be part of this, that they thought they had more money to pay for producing stuff, and suddenly they didn't.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think as well. Yeah, no, I mean, you got to think back in terms of like how rare these things are and how much traction it gets. There's a value in PR, right? And bad images are not good. And you got to think of how much sort of everywhere and what everyone was talking about with the Scarlett Johansson, sort of, bringing legalities to the table. It was everywhere. And they really did their best to kind of squash that as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So they don't want this to happen. It's not what they want. It goes
there's
on
one
behind
thing
the
with that,
scenes.
though.
But yeah.
Because that particular thing, that was a political campaign against JPEG, because that is specifically the kind of thing that usually would have gone into arbitration and been resolved behind closed doors. Here, in that particular case, though, there was no attempt at trying to solve it behind the scenes. That was straight for lawsuit, because it was a hit job done by orchestrated by Iger.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to use it as an example of how bad it gets when something like this does come out. Like, it's just everywhere. It's top of the agenda. This will be on podcasts, on all these mainstream media outlets. Will be discussing this for some time now, and it's not something that they want. So yeah, you are completely right. It is rare. This is an exception for this to be as public as it is. I don't know if you've got anything else to add to this, Paulie or Culture, before we move on to the next super chat.
It's rare, and as Andre pointed out, it's almost always done in arbitration. But you will see it occasionally between two entities battling it out. But as far as actors, producers, writers, no, this is usually very, very hush hush. So
yeah. Well, again, thank you for that, the Seaman, and thank you, the Sundowners Club, for supporting the channel, getting your question in there, joining in the conversation. Says, I would want to see the memo of understanding to see how liable Lucasfilm is. They are working with Kennedy on severance package, so timing is interesting. Andre, you have anything to add to that? I mean,
do we know for a fact that they are doing that? I have also heard the rumors, but I don't know that they're doing that for a fact. I don't think that has anything to do with this necessarily. Of course, it's just really, really bad for her, because again, it's just cementing Kathleen Kennedy's legacy.
It's a failure.
Under her reign, it's just been failure after failure after failure. She appeared to be the biggest, most important producer of all time, because she latched on to Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, but the moment she stood on her own, she failed worse than anyone could have imagined.
Yeah, I mean, the end part, as far as I know, is complete speculation at this point. It's speculative based on information at hand, so I guess it's like an informed guess, because she always said she'd go after Indiana Jones is released. Indiana Jones is going to be released. You would lead up to the release with working out your severance package. So all of that, like, yeah, I guess. But I wouldn't say that they're linked specifically, but it doesn't look good. And in terms of wanting to see the memo of understanding, yeah, I would love to see that, because that will really, in the Deadline article, it was like they even had an email from, and they named the individual, saying, yeah, like, no worries, we're really excited to get working on this. So it's like, it's very clear cut that, they were working together. But I'd love to see how liable they are. Paulie, Culture. We said it all, look. Oh, Culture, can't hear you, mate. You're muted.
I'm muted, brother.
I was gonna say, gosh, I'm like, hello. Couldn't see.
Didn't Andre?
I did. Look, you always go after the biggest pockets in a lawsuit, and so Disney's the biggest pockets. I don't know if the two things are related. Lawsuit to Kennedy leaving. Kennedy, like I said, as you mentioned, I mean, she mentioned that she was waiting till after 5, or that's how it's been reported. To what end that's accurate or whatnot, I can't speak directly, but I'll say this: the Disney has many problems. She's one of them. But the memo of understanding is something that is it's a common document. So It's
Well, apparently they've sent one, so they do
Yeah.
have it. So be interesting to see. Paulie?
I want to see this go to court. I want to get.
I'd love to see it go to court. Wouldn't that be good? That'd be so
I want to get
interesting.
all the legal minds and all those people.
Yeah.
That'd be good fun. I'd really enjoy that if it went to court.
Yeah, I mean,
be
yeah,
decent.
that we could do one too. We could do a live, you know.
Oh yeah, of course.
Why not? That would be
Yeah,
gold,
yeah.
man.
I love it.
That's all I got.